Oaks, we're here at Cooper's Plains. Let's see if we can find some no people's opinions. And we'll wrap it up until referendum day. Yeah, unbuckled discussion. Unbuckled discussion. This is unbuckled discussions. Unbuckled discussions. Unbuckled discussions. Unbuckled discussions. Welcome to unbuckled discussions.
I'm supporting the No campaign because I believe that it's a form of apartheid.
And
that we're dividing the country when we don't need to divide the country. And I just don't like the way it's been handled in terms of the division that is taking place. It's very unfortunate. And I'm very impressed with, those two individuals there, their faces.
yeah,
I'd be quite happy for the one on the left to be president of this country.
who are they?
Who are they? Mundine.
Yeah, Warren Mundine,
Warren
right?
Mundine.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've got Jacinta
Yeah.
Price. She can be the next prime minister, and he can be the president.
Oh, that's good to hear.
How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great.
I'd be very happy.
So, one counter argument to that, people say that the country is already divided, and this is a way to give the people left out a voice that they don't have at the moment.
Well, you can go and Google this if you wish.
Yes,
And you said you came from South Africa.
correct.
If you look at the South African Constitution, they introduced a tricameral parliament between 1974 and 1994, which was to give a voice to the coloureds and the Indians. So they had these two parliaments next to the white parliament to give a voice. Now, did that get them anywhere? Did that achieve anything? So this whole thing about a voice is just so much uncertainty. There's a lot of problems when you fiddle with the Constitution, like is happening, and that can create a lot of problems for people down the track. And also there's going to be maybe financial factors when there's reparation that's demanded.
Yeah.
And there's already a huge bureaucracy in this country managing what is a problem, but I'm not sure that this is the way to go about it.
So, what's the best way to go about it then, if this isn't the way? And is there a problem to fix then, or not?
When you've got the problem of suicide in this country, which nobody wants to talk about, yes, there is a problem. When you've got people dying in custody, yes, there is a problem. Now, it's easy to identify a problem, I agree. It's another thing to actually work on it, whether it's a drug problem or whatever the problem is. But also throwing money. I was up in Northern Territory last year, and I got a good idea what's happening up there. So when you combine alcohol and just throw money at people as well, that's not always the answer, people that are disadvantaged. So I think that to have two classes of Australia, I thought I'd left apartheid behind.
Yeah.
But I've arrived in Australia and find it's alive and well.
It is.
I'm glad you laugh, because it's actually, you got either cry or you laugh.
I think it all depends where you go, but I've definitely felt a lot of tension in certain parts of Australia, and where I've gone into a pub and it's been completely separated,
That's a pity.
Yeah.
It's a pity that people don't. Look, I don't mind people, if they want to vote yes or no, as long as they've thought about it and as long as they've got a well-reasoned argument.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. But unfortunately, a lot of people probably don't understand what it's about and are very confused. And we don't know, because with any election, any referendum, you don't know the result. So I don't want to try and predict it completely.
Yeah.
But I think there's a very strong surge towards people who understand what is happening, and they're going to be. I think you're going to see a clear result in favour of a no vote on this one. And I'm not talking politically now on this.
And do you think that's coming from Aboriginal Australians or from both white Australians or both?
Funny enough, I think it's coming from both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just assume that it's coming from white Australians or Aboriginal Australians. I mean, how do you know what? I mean, my DNA goes back to 1720 in Africa. 1720.
Yeah.
So I won't disclose exactly what it all is.
Yeah.
But I don't like this. You're an Aboriginal, you're a white Australian, or what you are. And it reminds you of South Africa, asking a person if they're black, white, coloured, or whatever they are.
Yeah, trying to put them in a box.
I'd rather see people feeling they're Australian and working in that direction.
Yeah.
Rather than dividing the country, sadly.
I think some of and I'm just countering an argument here, some of the concern is a lot of people feel like the current idea of what an Australian is doesn't represent Aboriginal culture enough, and is too much like an evolution of an English person, etc. Do you feel like just the idea of an Australian may need to be changed rather than?
Now that is a very complex question.
Yeah, it is probably unnecessary.
It's a very complex question because if you're going to try and define what is an Australian, is it somebody with a bush hat on? I mean, are you going to say the real Australians out in the outback and who's an Australian? I mean, it's like you saying, what is a South African? Is it a Portuguese South African, a Jewish South African, and a Hindu South African, a Muslim South African?
Yeah.
So I don't like that. I just think that there should be less focus on differences and more focus on being proud of your heritage. We're very, to use the term, a very lucky country.
Yeah.
So you just got to travel and see the problems of other countries to realize that we want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So why do you want to start dividing the country now? And having extra politicians and extra layers of bureaucrats, here, and the taxpayer getting, digging into their pockets to keep on dishing out money, and not having accountability over all that money, and isn't going to the people that really need it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry for my complex question, but I think it's because you got a very complex opinion, which is very interesting.
I have a complex background.
Yeah, that's just.
And I've lived in 3 countries in Africa, and I don't want to disclose everything, but I lived in three countries in Africa, and I've been here 42 years.
Yeah.
So I do have some understanding of what it is, and I did have a choice between Canada or Australia when I immigrated.
Yeah.
They don't ask me why I came here.
Yeah. Do you think
it was the weather?
I'm sure it was. Do you think it's too far gone in a way? Like the White Australia policy, and like in the early 1900s, set out to eliminate Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal people, and whiten the population, much like Argentina did, much like the Americas did. And to some degree, they very much succeeded. Obviously, if you go to certain areas in Australia, there's still a higher population of Aboriginals. But if you look here in the cities, it's hard to find them. You'll see more immigrants from subcontinent of Asia and East Asia and South Africa. You'll see more South Africans in the cities than you will Aboriginals sometimes. So do you think it's almost too late for the original peoples, or do you think there's still time to unify?
Look, I believe that education helps a great deal, and I believe that rather than throwing money at people and just putting them on Centrelink and giving them money to spend on their booze, whoever they are, black, white, purple, or green, is the answer. I think there should be a lot more focus on the suicide issue, not just amongst Aborigines, amongst Australians, amongst young Australians. The drug issues, all of those are important issues. All important issues.
Thank you. And last question, it's a bit of a weird one. Do you think if in a hypothetical world, if the Aboriginal people were to gather together and develop a people's army for the Aboriginal people, and it's a hypothetical world.
Sorry, a people's army?
Just an army of some sort, a force, and attack the Australian government to try and make it their own country, do you think they'd be considered liberators or terrorists?
Particularly in view of what's happened now, as you would be aware in Israel.
What would they be labelled? Which one?
Well, anybody that kills indiscriminately and killed innocent people, and I would not be encouraging anybody to be taking that course of action. So I think we're there to try and uplift people, and at the end of the day, if you look at the indigenous people of South Africa, they're not the Zulus or the Xhosas. A lot of the indigenous people of South Africa were pushed into the desert. Now, as far as we've always had throughout the mankind, I'm not allowed to use the word mankind, personkind, since the beginning of time.
You're up with the word culture, aren't you?
We've always had people that invade and hopefully occupiers, and hopefully they uplift people in the process.
Yeah.
And I think they've done that. I mean, what was this country like when it was first settled? You got to look at history in the context of the time. It's now turning around. I mean, the white Australian policy only ended in 1971.
Yeah, so it's not that long ago.
Not long ago at all. Now, you've got to once again look at history in terms of the culture. I mean, if you look at the Boer War, how many Australians are aware of the Australians that went and fought in the Boer War and took their horses across and were volunteers?
Yeah.
Yes, you could say it was a British Empire and it was all those reasons, but that's what happened. Now, the first question is, who would fight for Australia? I mean, we're a white enclave in the middle of Asia. Mm-hmm. So our future also has a lot of question marks over it when you look at the possibility of Taiwan being invaded.
Yeah.
And forget about the problems with Israel and Ukraine. This is a continent and a country So it's difficult to just invade. But at the end of the day, you have to be conscious of who we are and what we are, and focus on real problems,
Yeah.
not divide in the country.
Yeah. I like it. Thank you very much. Very controversial opinions, but very educated, informed ones.
As
so.
long as people think, that's
Yeah.
all that counts.